Nice running that. How are you?
Hey Steve, how are you doing? Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Are you?
There's
Are you
no breakup.
no, you sound fine.
Okay.
Are you on a microphone today, or are you on your phone again?
No, I'm on my phone. The microphone is on my desktop. It's gone on the motherboard, so I can't even replace it without replacing the computer, which is kind of a single point of failure.
Okay, not just plug a new one into your USB.
Oh yeah, I think I should try that. I haven't bothered to try that yet. Yeah, I should probably use a USB way to connect.
Yeah, because I've only got it's like a cheap USB headset with a microphone on it.
Okay. Yeah, that might work. Actually, I'll probably go. I think now that you mention it, I have a Bluetooth USB connector, so I can connect that and then get my wireless ear sets on. So that should make it even simpler. So I can like
Right.
move around. That'll work. Yeah, I was bummed because, and actually, I mean, I've been connecting by phone for a while because it's simpler and I can move around a little bit too with it. But I think the USB thing will work even better.
Yeah. Do you not need to sit there with your holding onto your phone then?
No, I just put it on the desk and I have a long extension so I can kind of move around.
Right.
And it picks it up pretty good, which is something that's pretty good with these new phones. It's not as bad for pickup.
Yeah. No, you sound fine. I saw
Okay,
that
yeah, I
Al.
think Alex said he won't be able to join,
Yeah,
so it may be
yeah, I saw that.
fewer people than normal, but there were a couple of people who said, "Hey, I want to join the Kaggle team," and I told them where we were at, so that might have deferred their participation until we get going on a new competition or something.
Yeah.
Because I told them, "Hey, welcome, but here is where we are in the sequence." So it's almost 6 after, so maybe people will trickle in. But were you able to get anything submitted?
Um, I've spent days on this. It's like you know, like the approach I was taking to sort of
Right. Of
have whatever 23, 24 classifiers,
right.
and yeah,
Right.
like break it up by frequency and time. But yeah,
Right.
like I was just like using like a really basic CNN, but I couldn't get it to train. So
Hmm.
I spent absolutely ages sort of working on like all of the windows to slice things up and stuff. So all of that
Right.
bit
Right.
seems to work okay. And then because it wasn't really
Ah.
training, I thought I would like sort of go back and take a look at sort of what other people had done in the competition. Um, so I was looking for like a PyTorch classifier, which yeah, like I found one, and yeah, it's actually given me really good scores. But the reason it's given me really good scores is he's doing like lots of different tricks on the thing. Um, like basically he's using like a pre-trained model from a different competition, and he's using like hand labeled stuff and things like that. Where yeah, so
Oh, I,
I ran that and it gave me, was it 0.96 or something? It was like sort of top 10
wow.
type
Yeah,
performance.
that's like I think that's probably one of the leading things that I had in the spreadsheet,
Yeah,
right? That
yeah, I think it's probably in your spreadsheet. I'm not sure exactly which one it is or what it is, but yeah, no, like it gives a really good score, and like plus as well, that's only a single model. It's not, there's no like ensembling or anything going on.
hmm.
So yeah, like
So
it is
that
very
is that
impressive.
that's not oh, the hand labeling is, I think, yeah, one of the, I forget which one it is. There is one in the top 10. There's like either the fifth or the sixth one that has the code, because you said you were submitting, so that means you probably had code from it, right?
Yeah. I can say I'll share my screen here and show you which one it is. Perhaps you might recognize it. Yeah, like I don't know, is it in your spreadsheet or what? I've got I can't move that out of the way to get my yeah, so it's this one here. Yeah, so it's
I've seen.
yes, I'll go to his one.
I've seen this one, but did this one have the code? Yeah, I guess it does. Huh?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. So you can see like it's got really good scores.
Right. Yeah, I've seen this one, RFCX minimal. I don't know whether it included this in the given 0.97. It's like definitely in the top, 10 for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not sure. You can see like it was submitted 2 months ago, or whatever. So it's maybe somebody's come along and didn't actually enter into the competition, so it's maybe not included in your spreadsheet. But yeah, and like if we look at the input here, yeah, so it's this thing. Is it the thing? Yeah. So
yeah,
like
I think to your point, these guys use extra labels.
Yeah,
they
there it is. Yeah, like
the previous birds.
Yeah, so like this thing here, he's got like all these extra labels that he pulls in, and yeah, as I say, he's using it on a pre-trained model from a Cornell competition. I'm not sure.
Right, which is the other bird. Yeah.
That was the other birdsong one, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But as I say, I only really wanted it because of the fact that I just wanted to sort of take the classification part of it. Yeah, so he's got like lots of like augmentation going on, like on the actual sort of audio. But
the thing is also surprising. I mean, you have to go through the code. I don't know whether you found whether he was actually applying all of it, because sometimes the code is there, but eventually they find out it doesn't give me anything, so they just resort to using one or two of them.
Yeah. Most of it seemed to be sort of done or whatever. Yeah, I was only really wanting like this type of thing here where he's like sort of playing about with the spectrograms and turning them into images and like normalizing them and stuff. So I've taken that, but yeah, at the minute the problem I was having, yeah, so I've just gone to like a really basic one, but this here, it uses a PyTorch Lightning, and yeah, so like when it actually sort of comes to train, I was having like a load of problems in that it was like training. Yeah, so like this is the PyTorch Lightning trainer, and then he's got like the the function to do the metric, the LW whatever it is, LW wrap.
Oh yeah, LWL wrap. Yeah.
Yeah,
Label weighted,
and like
label rank average precision.
Yeah, but for me, when it was like doing this early stopping thing, PyTorch Lightning was complaining, saying that it was having trouble between the GPU and the CPU, and that's the trouble with like these type
run
of.
On the TPU.
Yeah, it's like basically on his metric.
And is it running on a TPU? Is this thing coded to run on TPU? So
oh no, sorry, it's on GPU, but no, it's complaining about it was complaining about the metric. Yeah, so here you can see he's like sticking things onto the device and stuff, but like PyTorch Lightning was just coming back saying you've got some things on the CPU and you've got some things on the GPU, and it was failing.
I see. Because it was maybe
I don't know where.
Sometimes it also is. By the way, the other thing I found is sometimes, I mean, for example, even though I've been doing it for a while, it's like I think the labels have to be long, and like not. They have to be, what's the word for it? they have to be cast to be of the type long.
Right.
And yeah, I've encountered this similar thing elsewhere too, that where it said my, not everything is on the same device kind of thing, right? That I mean, as long as you keep the device. So, by the way, Lightning is very similar to what FastAI is. In fact, the guys were going at it, saying you just copied FastAI code, and the guy who coded the Lightning thing
Yeah.
was getting pushback in public from the FastAI guy, saying, "What are you doing? Just copy the code and making it,
I know.
calling it."
But that's the trouble.
Because
Like that's
the
what I
trainer
used to.
is like the learner in FastAI. But
y-
anyway, that's besides
Yeah.
the point.
Yeah. But
So it's just not running that part.
well, yeah. So like you can see here he's using like his LWL wrap as the metric to like look for early stopping, and yeah, so something's gone wrong in PyTorch Lightning, sort of putting things onto the right device in there. So I had to change away from using this metric to using something else. And then it would train. But then I had the other problem that once I had the thing trained, like this guy here, he's doing, yeah, like he's got 5 folds going on. And then
Mm-hmm.
when the 5 folds have finished training, so it's not, yeah, so like when he comes to make the test predictions back here, then suddenly
Mm-hmm.
like he sort of switches out of Lightning back to normal PyTorch, and he's like loading the checkpoints in and like pulling the model weights out of the models and then averaging over them. And like all I
Oh
wanted
boy.
to do, yeah, like all I wanted to do was like sort of I've only got one model and one fold at the minute. Um, so I
Mm.
just wanted to like create the model, and you can see he's like sort of messing about with all of the like the way like he's split the images up and stuff. So PyTorch
But
Lightning
actually,
didn't make
go
it
ahead.
easy to work with that. So
Oh,
basically, I've decided to switch back from PyTorch Lightning back to standard PyTorch. And, yeah, like just go back to like normal stuff so as I can actually sort of handle the devices myself. But yeah,
yeah,
this
and
is
also,
take
like you're saying, can't you just take one model and then, like earlier versions of earlier versions of some of the links I posted, and even my code, I think once that I posted, or you can find other notebooks that pretty much you can do the prediction, take the prediction part from them, and they are fairly simple using a single model, and then you don't have to um, do all these weight gathering. And also, in fact, another way you could do it, if you look at, I'll see whether I can pick up the relevant link and post it later today to you. But um, you could just use the 5 models to make 5 predictions, stack them, and average them.
yeah,
Instead of, even you could do that, but to get the first thing working, you could always just stick with one of the 5 models and just use the model which gives you the best score and in validation, and just use that model. But the other way to do it, which I've been doing all along, is just use the 5 models. That way you don't have to screw around with the weights. You just take uh, each model of each of the folds, predict, and then average the predictions. And while you're averaging there, you can use the rank averaging or the average averaging. You can use either of those. And sometimes one works better than the other. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? Like you can do 5, each fold predicts for the, for entire 60 seconds. And then you just take all of those predictions and either rank average them or average them just by taking the mean. And there
yeah,
are that part of the inference and the averaging you can take from some other notebook. I think there are multiple of them which do that based on a single fold or on 5 fold.
yeah, yeah. Like I think there's like sort of various ways I can get around my problem, but it was, yeah, like I just sort of went down this PyTorch Lightning path, and I've ended up being very frustrated by it and spent absolutely ages on it without getting very far. So I'm sort of, yeah, just at the point
Actually,
where I'm
I'm
going to step back.
still puzzled why, because I was very eagerly waiting to see, because your approach seemed very um, rational and also kind of would seemingly give really good results of just taking the 20, just
Yeah.
classifying per sound. So I'm very surprised why the hell the um, basic RESTnet or whatever, right? Like you can use any one of the networks didn't learn at all based on your. That's very puzzling.
Yeah.
Why that happened?
Um, yeah. I'm not really sure. I think, yeah, like partially to start with, I think it was just down to my spectrogram because what I did with it, it was basically just a single channel. And plus, as well, to start with, I hadn't sort of normalized it. So then I normalized it, but it was still a single
Mm-hmm.
channel. So that's why I sort of took a step back and thought, well, I'll go and like have a look and see what people are doing, just like sort of
Mm-hmm.
classifying where they're just using a single classifier for like all of the 24 classes, but on the whole
Right,
spectrogram.
but the single channel should be also easy one to fix if you just duplicate the channels to make it a 3 channel, and then you can feed it into any good old RESTnet type of thing, right? Because
Yeah, that's
basically
what I
you just
thought. That's what this guy's got here. He's got like, as I say, he's got like basic code in there, and he uses the whole image, which is why I thought I'd be able to sort of, yeah, like steal his sort of these bits of the code or whatever, where he's converting the single channel
mono
into
to
color and
color.
stuff,
Yeah,
and like normalizing
right,
it. And
right, right.
yeah, so like basically, I was just taking this as the only bit I was
Yeah,
after.
yeah,
Um,
right. Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, then I got stuck in the PyTorch
Because
Lightning
all the
rabbit hole.
lightning stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so unfortunately, that's yeah
Kind of
delayed me.
some of these, yeah, is a sinkhole once you get in, which is the reason that if it's your own code, then it's like clean and you know what where you're going, and then there's so much overhead that comes with other things like he's using lightning, or in fact that's why I stayed away from TPUs. There are some really good scores with TPUs, but my concern was anything breaks there, I have no idea what the hell the TPU usage thing is, and then I'll be digging into that. And I mean, it's a good thing to learn, but
That's what happened to me.
um,
Yeah, like in the last competition I was doing, I did that like Shopee competition and like tried to use, yeah, like obviously TensorFlow or whatever, and Keras work very
mm,
well with TPUs, whereas yeah, like PyTorch
right,
still seems to be struggling. And yeah,
yes,
like again, PyTorch Lightning said that it's got like all the TPU support, but at the time I was
mm,
also trying to use weights and biases, and like Lightning has like all this integration with weights and biases for like all the logging, and it all works fine, apart from if you want to use TPUs, and it just can't handle the fact that you're running on multiple TPUs, and it can't sort of synchronize the things together. And so yeah, again,
oh,
it all broke for me, and I ended up spending days trying to get like my logging to work on that. So yeah, it's as you say, if you sort of go down into somebody else's framework, you get a bit stuck if things break.
yeah, yeah. So in fact, I was doing a fast AI, uh, a guy using fast AI to he's like ranked 25th or 26th, and I said, okay, I mean, I'm fairly familiar, so let me try. And I got, and his code was hyper modularized for using bazillion different losses. I said, I don't need all this crap. So I just simplified, made it flat, just, kind of broke it down into, because he was creating his own library and had it in 10 different notebooks. I was like, okay, I'm not doing all this, and just simple one linear path through it, everything. And then I find out that something fundamentally in his, and this is just 3 4 months old, this competition stuff, right? Like even in your case. And I just before I left on vacation for July 4th and stuff, I couldn't get it to work. It ran into some basic and it's a problem in the net in his setup or the way so it's complaining about some dimensions not lining up. So it's obviously not any kind of setup problem, but something in coding itself that he has using the network, and he has kind of attached some head and stuff that's gone wrong. So I'll see whether I have to debug, but that's what happens when, if it's not using something in, and at least I try to use anything that I can fully understand and change and screw around with. And again, this one broke. So just like you, I'm kind of stuck in that right now. See whether I'm able to debug, or else I'm going to be like, okay, I'm done. The couple of papers, at least that, so in this thing, you're now trying to get out of Lightning and just do the regular PyTorch for the inference and try to see what that does.
Yeah. So yeah, like I think the spectrogram image handling bit that I've taken from that notebook should fix my problem for the other classifiers. But yeah, just being able to do the inference, yeah, I'm gonna have to drop out of Lightning and just go back to normal PyTorch. Then that should let me sort of proceed that way.
Yeah, and I think if you do the, if you get one fold working, then you can get each of the folds, predict, and do either the rank or the straight up
exactly.
averaging.
Yeah, like if you can get like it classifying on one species, then the others should all work. So
yeah,
once I've sort of got that basic thing, then I should be able to get ahead.
Right. Yeah, because I'm eager to see how well. I think your approach should work really well. So I'm hoping you can get past these new things to see how much, because at least I've tried all this chunking, whereas yours is species specific identification, and you in time you chunk it to the duration that is there, or I forget what exactly you do on the time. And the frequency, I think you're just taking pretty much whatever range, right? From
that's right. Yeah. So like, so each species has a sort of specific max and min frequency. So I just cut the frequency down to what the species is, and then each species as well has its own sort of max and min length of time. Like it seems to be each species has a sort of similar window. So yeah, I just chop that to the sort of the maximum time window for a species.
And then on inference time, you just kind of try to predict all of the
at inference. Yeah, so like I slice the 60-second window up into periods of time that are the maximum for the species. And then, like an inference time, I was just going to work my way along the line in that.
So you would approach it as, let's say for species one, I mean, to simplify, let's say species one is 3 seconds, and let's use just a couple, then it will be, then species two is, let's say, 10 seconds. So you would say species one, you would do 20 slices, right? Meaning sliding window of 3 seconds, and you would get 20. And species two, you would get, let's say it's 10 seconds, then you would get sliding window of 6 sliding windows of 10 seconds to predict over the 60 seconds. And you would kind of detect that. Is that what you were thinking? That then you would see in any of the for the first species, any of the 20 slices, if it has it, then you will predict yes. And for the species two, if any of the whatever, 6 slices have it, then you would predict yes. Now, the only thing I'm thinking through is how do you combine them to get the label weighted score? You would be combining the scores from different classifiers, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think I'd thought that far ahead. I just thought I would get a sort of probability score or whatever from each classifier about
Right.
how likely it thought that that species was to be present in that 60-second window. And then, yeah,
Right. But you wouldn't get one, right? Because you have a sliding window of like whatever the time slice is, that many slices you will have, right? 60 divided by that many slices. So
yeah,
that's why I was saying for species 1, let's say it's 3 seconds that your slice is, then you will have 20 slices. So you would have 20 probabilities, of which let's say a couple of them say yes. You would need to pick probably the max, right? Because all you care about is if it's there, then you just care about whether it's there or not. But keep in mind that you would need to label rank all of them eventually. So you will need the highest probability probably of each of the species, right? So that you can then compare the probabilities to get the label ranking. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like I was wondering, could I stick like another network on the top or whatever that would take the outputs of the 23 classifiers and sort of come up with like another classification or whatever to say, but I hadn't got that far yet.
Because you'd have to sketch that out to see how you get, because your window slices are going to be different unless you just pick the max for each species, because then you'll have only one probability number that you're dealing with for each species. Then you just have 24 numbers that you have to rank order.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like otherwise you would have varying number of windows and each of them having an associated probability. That might be trickier to rank average. Because for species 1, for example, if the time slice is 3, then you have 20 slices. For species 2, I'm making up the numbers, but species 2, if you have 10-second slices, then you have like for 60 seconds, you have 6 slices. So for species 1, you'll have 20 slices. That means 20 probability predictions, and species 2, 10 probability predictions, and combining them with different things, although you could probably do some weighting and all that, but you'll have to figure out the whole methodology of how you're going to go about doing that. If you just max predict each of the species based on the max probability in any given window, then you will just have one probability number associated with each species, and then you can rank all of them.
Yeah, so like I think that was like the approach I was thinking of taking, but
yeah, that'd be interesting.
I had been waiting until I'd sort of had a classifier that could even predict one species. So
yeah. Interesting.
So what about yourself? Have you proceeded?
No, unfortunately, I was out most of the week. I had to leave the weekend. I just got back last night. I had to drive up to Seattle and stuff. So I was like totally checked out the last week and a half. Yeah, so I haven't been able to spend any time whatsoever online since about not even last Wednesday before last. So I've been gone. I haven't stared at a screen in a while, which is good, but
all right.
It's been a break. So the thing I was thinking of, and I'll also solicit, is inputs from others. I responded to Alex and asked him for the same. If there is any papers that you think one I had tagged already is the REST nest, because that's something that I used, but I haven't gone through the paper to see how it's better or improved compared to RESTnet, our traditional RESTnet.
Yeah.
If efficient net and other things we have covered elsewhere, I've looked at it. So that's the one paper from a network standpoint that I wanted to look at. For again student teacher kind of thing, I haven't found a very good paper. I found a knowledge distillation paper, but I don't know that is exactly the technique that's being applied here. It seems, and I think Alex provided a link to, I had looked at that as well, but that didn't have any paper references for, student teacher, like you train a student network and then train a teacher, train a student. But the way it's used in this competition is different from this knowledge distillation, whereas because knowledge distillation, what they try to do is train a very complex model as the teacher and then use a much simpler model as the student, and the teacher trains the student and the student is a much simpler model. That one I can conceptually understand. All you're trying to do is use, learn the salient things from the underlying data in a very complex model, and then use a student model, which is a much simpler model, and use the teacher's outputs to train the student and get it to be as close as this as you possibly can to the more complex teacher model. So you get a much simpler model, but with almost the same accuracy as the teacher. Now that one conceptually I can understand, although we can go through the paper, but that's not how they use it in this particular competition. So if you find, that's just one example, but if you find other techniques that people are applying, for example, even this notebook you're following, if there is some, specific thing which we should dive into and kind of from a paper reading or a technique perspective, then feel free to post the paper and the link on Slack. And I think over the next maybe couple of weeks, we should do that. And then, maybe a week from today or 2 weeks from today, we can begin the call for the next competition as well.
Okay.
Because there is one other paper I've identified called contrastive learning of using, let me see what that thing is called. I'll do the name because I did bookmark it. Contrastive learning of general purpose audio representation. And since you haven't joined the deep learning with PyTorch course, right? So that one there, he talks about contrastive learning from an energy-based model perspective. So that's something I thought would be interesting to learn, because the contrastive learning is again relevant to this false positive, true positive example. So you kind of say, here are positive pairs and here are negative pairs, and try to learn from the difference. So that's a paper that I'll take a quick look at to see whether it's relevant and whether we can spend some time learning from it.
Yeah, like in that notebook that I've been going through, about the only paper he references is one about, catastrophic forgetting, where like he says that you train a network on species 3, say, and by the time you come to look at one of the other species, your network's sort of forgotten about its earlier training. So he references a paper in there about how he sort of can stop his network from forgetting the stuff it's learned before.
That'd be interesting. I am curious as to under what conditions is this forgetting happening, because we do all kinds of classification, right? 24 classes, and so does it mean if you're training for large number of cases it forgets, or under what conditions does the forgetting happen?
Yeah, I noticed that he does do specific stuff within his training to try and make it remember certain species. I think it's maybe for the species that aren't sort of as common in the data. So yeah.
So that might be another technique to overcome this. Yeah, that'd be an interesting link if you can post that. Maybe we can look at that one too and see, just learn when is it relevant, why is it, where is it applicable, and especially if what you're saying is true, that might be another technique to adjust for infrequent classes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's just sort of down to sort of when you got like a sort of imbalance in the classes.
Right. Another technique for handling imbalance of classes. That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that compares, for example, to the technique of just oversampling, if you will, which is the typical thing, at least I've done so far, is just adjusting the weights or oversampling, right? I mean, from what I have learned, it seems like obviously the simple way people provide is adjust the weights, but Jan LeCun, as well as Jeremy both advocate not doing the weight tweaking, but instead adding samples, which is basically oversampling the undersampled thing, making
Yeah.
them have, making them equal in number. But then Jan LeCun mentioned in one of the lectures that what he mentioned, which makes sense, but I haven't seen anybody do it, and I talked to Rekhil as well, and he said, yeah, I listened to it too, and I haven't done it, and it'd be really interesting to see if somebody does it and compares. So what Jan LeCun says in that lecture is, yes, if you have infrequent classes, you compensate for it by oversampling or duplicating the class in your data. But at the end, he says that after training the network using the oversampling data, you should run the final pass or final training run should be done with the imbalanced data, because the network, while learning some of the representations, ought to see much more of the samples. But when it actually does the classification, it also needs to know that this sample is infrequent.
Yeah. Although,
which I thought was very fascinating, because I haven't seen this last bit actually applied by anybody. You see what I'm saying? Like the last bit about, okay, now I have oversampled. Now I'm going to go back and train my model that has learned the representation on the actual data, which is not oversampled.
I can understand that. Yeah, like if your test data is going to have exactly the same distribution as your training data. But I was watching again. Have you watched the video that Yuri sort of mentioned from whatever it is, the San Diego Kaggle competition team?
Yeah, I did some time back.
Yeah, so I watched that again, and yeah, like they were saying, or I was reading that basically, like within this competition, that the test data doesn't have the same distribution as the training data. Supposedly, the training data has been labeled up, and it's got like loads of missing labels on it, which is why all these people have done the hand labeling. Whereas like the test data set, it is all labeled properly. And supposedly, like the so the species distribution in the test set here is completely different from the training set. So if you were to go back and like as your final sort of training step, train with the imbalanced training data, it might affect your test scores.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think you bring up a good point, which is Jan LeCun's comment applies under the condition that your training and or under the condition that the particular classes that you are undersampled or that are infrequent in your training data are also infrequent in your test data.
Yeah.
If your test data, because he was actually using a medical example, and what he was saying was, if the reason that the medical samples of certain things are rare, then you want to make sure that the network understands they are rare. So yeah, you are pointing out that a very important caveat to his observation, which is the underlying assumption of his statement works if the distribution is same between training and test data. If the distribution is unknown, then you're probably better off leaving the oversample network as is.
Yeah.
Right. Or more importantly, you ought to kind of, and that's where, again, a slight variant of this is also make sure your validation data is as close as possible to your test data. If your validation data is very different from your test data, which unfortunately, for example, in this competition, it would be because your validation data is part of your training data. And if your training data is so different from your test data, then you're stuck with the problem that your validation data is not a representative sample of your test data, then you're screwed. Then you're better off, or more precisely, you're better off not doing that last step. That's probably why people aren't doing that last step, except it points out a very important thing that Yandukun is highlighting is if you know that your test data and training data are similar, for example, for medical case that you was talking about, that if you know that certain specimens of disease thing are rare, then while you wanted to recognize it, and therefore you would oversample the examples to train your network, the eventual network model that you want to build is one that recognizes that in the wild, the distribution of that particular, of those particular underrepresented classes are actually underrepresented in real life.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and yeah, like I think in general, your training data and like even in Kaggle competitions in general, the training data and the test data have the same distribution. It's just this strange competition where they've, for some reason, decided to sort of label their test data more accurately than their training data. So
yeah. No, actually, in fact, I don't know whether I went, whether you listened to the, I highlighted that because that whole pipeline, the way they built it is the test data is manually annotated. The training data is automatically template matched. And the template matching has many misses. And that's the reason you have this phenomena that you're talking about, which they refer to in that, now I recall, that the training data has a lot of missing labels because they do the matching using the template matching algorithm. It's kind of automated. And the automated template match has many misses and many false labels, but the test data is first done through automation and then corrected through manual elimination and or identification. So that's very precise. Yeah. Now I recall the detail of what you're talking about. But it's also interesting to me that, and I think this discussion helped to keep to solidify that if your training and test data are similar, then you want to oversample and then you want to run it once with the actual underlying data, but that's under the assumption that the training and the test, if they are different, then all bets are off. Then you need to kind of figure out which is the better approach. Which says that, if we were doing a submission, maybe if you ought to pick two models, one with kind of the final training done with the undersampled data and the other one with the oversampled data.
Yep.
When you don't know what the test distribution is.
I suppose like that's why, like a lot of people have been doing like their leaderboard probing or whatever in this competition.
Right, right, yes.
I suppose if you can go in there and do that type of thing, then you can sort of work out
Yeah,
if the two.
yeah. In fact, they do it like submit each one, make the class the same and submit it for one, for the second class, third class, thereby finding the distribution of the class in the test data.
Yep.
So, okie dokie. Okay, yeah, I think that if you can post that whatever catastrophic thingy, that might be an interesting paper to look at as well. So I'll ask for any other suggestions and anything else you can think of. I think it will be good to learn a couple of techniques from this competition before we move on. Okay, great. Thanks a lot for joining, Steve. Good luck with navigating. I'll try another week of the same kind of debug some problems, not of my own making or our own making. See whether we can work through it.
Okay. I will speak to you next week then. Okay.
Yeah.
See you later.
Sure thing.
Cheers. Bye.